Welcome to the Dracut Historical Society's presentation of Dracut and the start of the American Revolution. My name is Kent Varnum. I am the president of the Dracut Historical Society. Dracut was exceptional among Massachusetts communities in their readiness with which its sons volunteered their services. Here is our story. British officer General Thomas Gage served in the French and Indian Wars with George Washington. These two powerhouses will be at odds when tensions rise between the British and Massachusetts. General Gage, then the acting royal governor of Massachusetts Bay Province, received an espionage report on April 18, 1775. From this, he learned exactly where the colonists were storing weapons and gunpowder. This could only mean one thing. The colonists were preparing for conflict. He decided that he must act immediately to dismantle the situation by finding and securing this store of ammunition. He maintains top secrecy to assure he has the element of surprise. There were 3 training grounds for Dracut's train bands. These sites were created after King Philip's War and were used to keep the local militia prepared for any future attacks from hostile natives, mainly coming from New York. Joseph Bradley Varnum often went to Boston and saw the British soldiers practicing their battle tactics. For this, Varnum was made military instructor, and he taught the Dracut troops what he learned. This overachiever will later become Speaker of the House, third in line as President of the United States. Secret meetings were being held at taverns and meeting places to pass on information and make plans for whatever situation was brought forth. The alarm notifying the Minutemen that the British troops were marching to Concord began with 2 lanterns in the Old North Church. This was code that the British were taking the shorter route by crossing the Charles River, which was time-consuming, and that was an advantage for the Minutemen. Paul Revere began his midnight ride as planned and was joined by William Dawes and Dr. Samuel Prescott. Each time they passed on their signal, it is passed on again and again and again. An anonymous writer passed on the signal to Captain Trull of Tewksbury at about 2 a.m. 3 shots in the air. Immediately, Trull opened his bedroom window, and from his bed he replied with 3 shots, thereby notifying Joseph Bradley Varnum of Dracut, who repeats the shots, notifying Trull that he received them loud and clear, and he began notifying Dracut's nearby Minutemen, who also repeat them. Soon, shots could be heard throughout all of Dracut. And Dracut is ready. Both Captain Peter Coburn and Captain Stephen Russell have prepared their soldiers as Minutemen, and they quickly set off to Concord. The first challenge to their mission was to get across the Merrimack River. We know that the river was flooded that day due to the spring thaw. The men most likely followed the Concord River, which starts in Lowell, to the town of Concord. This is Dracut's probable route. It takes about 6 hours to walk from Dracut to Concord. Our men were marching with heavy weapons and ammunition. While Dracut companies were marching, the British were crossing by sea to Cambridge. As they landed, the British could hear far-off gunshots and bells ringing, and see several bonfires in the distance. It was clear to them that their plan had been discovered. A skirmish at Lexington ended in shots fired, leaving 11 Massachusetts men dead. Another skirmish in Concord ended with 3 Massachusetts men and 3 British soldiers dead. Battle Road, noon. Dracut enters the field around noon. British troops were angry that the gunpowder they were seeking could not be found. the British have started marching back to Boston. Both sides are uneasy. Both sides have lost men. Battle Road, 12:30 p.m. Minutemen keep pouring in from the hills and attack the British troops from both sides as they try to march back to Cambridge. Battle Road, 2:30 p.m. At Lexington, the militia that was left in disarray that morning after the first gunshots were fired has reassembled and got in line to drive the British back to Boston. British General Percy arrives with reinforcements, but Minutemen continue to outnumber them and are responding with unconventional military tactics. Battle Road, 4:30 p.m. Desperate and now overmatched, the British troops are pillaging homes and setting everything on fire. Monotony sees the worst bloodshed of the day. Siege of Boston, 7 p.m. By the time the troops get to Cambridge, the British are running out of ammunition. Dracut's men, along with thousands of militiamen, continue to follow the British and force them onto the Charlestown Peninsula. There they lay siege of the city. British soldiers are now captives. Dracut troops remain on site and help set up bunkers to control access in and out of the city. Dracut soldiers will spend days on end in these bunkers encircling Boston. By April 24th, over 20,000 colonial rebels surround the city. All commerce was stopped, cutting off all supplies to the captive British troops. The Massachusetts troops hoped that this isolation would force the British to surrender. To preserve what foods were present, General Gage allowed families and indigent people to leave the city, but they could not take weapons or food with them. To facilitate the relocation of these vulnerable civilians, each civilian was assigned a specific town for care. These people were known as donation people. Dracut was assigned 35 persons to care for. Dracut men engaged in Concord, Lexington, and Battle Road were also engaged at Cambridge in the siege of Boston for 8 months, and these same men fight at Bunker Hill. In late May, British supplies and fresh troops finally arrived from England. 2 new generals, John Burgoyne and Henry Clinton, are brought to replace General Gage. It was inevitable that the British attempt to flee Boston. American troops, acting on a tip, quickly fortified Bunker Hill and Breed's Hill and prepared for battle. The battle lasted for over 2 hours. The British sent row after row of men up the hill. Captain Peter Coburn's company ran out of ammunition just as the British had battled their way up the hillside. Face to face, Captain Coburn was confronted by the British captain. Coburn quickly grabbed a large rock and threw it, hitting the officer in the head and knocking him down. This gave Coburn's company the time to quickly make their escape. When Captain Coburn returned home, he discovered several bullet holes in his coat, but he had somehow remained unscathed. Technically, the British won the Battle of Bunker Hill because the American side ran out of ammunition and were forced to retreat. However, the British had more than twice as many casualties than the colonists, the tally being Americans 450 lost, British 1,054 lost. 3 of these men, Dracut's first 3 casualties in the Revolutionary War, were Benjamin Crosby and John Thistle in Captain Peter Coburn's company and Joseph Hibbard in a Methuen company. After Bunker Hill, General Gage was sent back to England. George Washington assumed command of the Continental Army in Cambridge on July 3rd. Jacob Coburn marched to Concord on the alarm of April 19, 1775. He was a private in Captain Stephen Russell's company, Colonel Green's regiment. His troop followed the British down Battle Road, where he remained 3 days, helping secure the siege of Boston. Then he walked home. Jacob built the front portion of this house in 1780, towards the end of the Revolutionary War. His farm grew larger with each generation until it became the mansion it is today. This beloved farmhouse is now the Dracut Museum. Dracut's Revolutionary War Monument is located in the heart of Dracut on the front lawn of the old Yellow Meeting House. This monument is in memory of the men of Dracut who served in the Revolutionary War from 1775 to 1783, placed by the Old Middlesex Chapter Sons of the American Revolution in 1903. Out of Dracut's 1,173 residents, 423 men joined in the war effort. This was more per capita than any other town in all of the 13 colonies. After the war, Dracut's heroes were immortalized in the naming of streets, parks, and cemeteries. Some of these are even the names of your neighbors.